Welcome back to another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. This is a WrinklyBrainEDH affiliated podcast where we like to goof, gaff, and talk about the Commander format. I'm your host today, joined by my lovely co-host, Cameron.
Howdy.
And we have a very special guest today, Callahan from the Mind Sculptors.
Heidi ho there, neighborinos. How you doing?
Callahan, really happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Early video plugs, let's go.
Okay, so, I've got, it depends on when all this stuff is coming out. The issue is all of our content I record, like, the week of, and then put out, like, the day before. So it's, like, so hard for me to plug stuff that's coming down the line, because it's like, well, depending on when this comes out, I don't know what's coming out. I know we have the CEDH Awards, which should be coming out on the 13th. So that's our fun annual thing, our second annual CEDH Awards.
Nice.
But
awesome.
Yeah.
But first, what's the Mind Sculptors?
So the Mind Sculptors, for those who are not aware, is we are a CEDH like super group. So basically we're comprised of several different people. Myself, there's comedian, if people are familiar with him. There is people like Pongo. There is Sick Robot, Spleenface, Cobblepot, Charles the Mono White Guy, Dr. Levine, Phoenix, Josh from Mind Muscle Magic, Sage, Scoots. Like, there's so many people that we all do. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anybody because we have that many people. I know James Squirrel Mob is now part of our team, and we are also doing stuff with Lua Stardust. And so, like, we focus on bringing high quality content to the competitive EDH scene, and specifically through the podcast format, but also trying to do gameplay, but that also requires me to have my shit together, which sometimes could be a tall ask.
Yeah. Like, really happy to have you here. Mind Sculptors is a very, very interesting group. It's not too often that you get, like, super groups of content creators coming together. Like, I don't know, what's the next closest thing? Like, Goldfish? Like,
I mean, maybe. It's kind of funny because it's literally just all people that I would, like, invite onto the podcast, and I'm like, do you just want to, like, come on the podcast regularly? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then
that's awesome.
We all just kind of, like, got along and became, like, this little group. And so, it originally just started off as myself hosting a podcast, and then Cobblepot kind of squeezed in, and then Pongo joined, and then we got, Reed and Morgan, and then here we are now. So
it's awesome. For today's episode, we figured we'd talk about some partners, because I played against you at Okotoberfest when you were on your Silas Ardenn deck, a deck I had never seen in CEDH.
Yes.
So I thought it was super cool. It performed pretty damn well. So let's go.
God,
let's do this.
Our game, I am almost 90% sure if we had 90-minute rounds, I probably would have won that game. Because that was the game where it was you, me, Rebel, and then there was the Urza player, right?
Yes.
That game was so wild, because that was the game that sold me on Sword and Feast and Famine as being, like, the truth. Because you had a oof out, there were winter orbs out, and I couldn't use half of my mana. Rebel is, like, just trying to draw cards. The Urza player is, like, not... We're all collectively doing enough to slow the Urza player down, but we aren't able to pull away. And I just top deck Sword of Feast and Famine. I have, like, Ardenn, and I forget what else I had out. I had, like, something that was mildly evasive. And I was just like, I guess this unlocks gets through Winter Orb and Static Orb, huh? So I played that, and then all of a sudden, like, I started getting more momentum, but the problem was it's a 75-minute timer. You know, you just kind of run up against that in those sort of games. So if we had like a 90-minute timer, I think I could have taken that game down, but I'll take the draw. It was all right.
Oh yeah, that game was fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds super fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a stacked pod too, for what it's worth.
Yes.
Yeah, and Rebel was playing Timna Crom. You were playing Thrast. What were you on? Like CST, I think.
Yeah, it's basically medium green.
Okay. But yeah, that was such a cool. That was one of my most memorable games from that event.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and also another partner deck with Rebel being there, but she was not playing like Blue Farm. She was playing like Staxy Hate Bear stuff. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, Timna Crom Hate Bears?
Yeah.
I love that deck. I've seen that on...
She did not like it. She was not a fan. She had tried it a lot, done some work with it, and then took it there, and then like halfway through day one was just like, she just comes up to me, she's like, I fucking hate this deck. It's just so bad. She's like, it just can't do anything. She's like, it draws all these cards, then doesn't do anything with them. And it's like...
But it did lead to an interesting conversation with her afterwards. I don't think you were there for it, but I was chatting with her about, like, she was playing Adnaz in the deck, and she's like, Adnaz seems, like, terrible in this deck, like, actively bad.
Yeah.
And then it just dawned on her, but Peer into the Abyss is actively good in this deck.
Yeah.
So, now that she's just like, I need to go to another event and try it with Peer into the Abyss and innovate on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if she did, but...
That was kind of one of the things when I was, like, working on Ardenn and Silas was... At first, because like the average CMC in the deck is like 1.7, maybe 1.65, like it's low. And I was like, oh, I'm in black, I could probably put Adnaz in there. That's like a good value Adnaz. And then I tried it, and then I was just like, every single Adnaz was the worst Naz I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I realized it's because, this is a control deck that doesn't play any proactive win conditions outside of Thassa's Oracle and DC and Tainted Pact. So if you don't hit exactly that, then you just have a bunch of cards you can't do anything with. And everybody knows what's in your hand. And I was like, so this card is actively bad. Cool. It's very interesting. But that's all we came to talk about. Yes.
Yeah, we're here to talk about the partner mechanic. The infamous mechanic that changed a lot of Commander back in, Commander?
2016.
This was 2016.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the basic Commander mechanic, for those who are unaware of it, according to Rule 702124A, Partner is an ability that modifies the deck building, the rules for deck construction in the Commander variant, and it functions before the game begins. Rather than a single legendary creature, you may designate 2 legendary creatures as your commander if each has Partner. What this means is you get 2 commanders, and your deck's color identity is that of both of your commanders. We talked about Silas Ardenn here. Well, that's an Esper deck, because Ardenn gives you white, and Silas is going to give you blue-black.
And that's about it.
That is a lot of the use of how Partner works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's a total of 4 forms of the partner mechanic at this point. We have the classic partner. Then we have partner with, friends forever, and choose a background.
Yeah. They definitely... So, like, right off the bat, it was very clear that the mechanic was, like, very strong. Mm-hmm. And it became like very evident because I was playing like competitive EDH back in the day. Now, obviously, nobody in R&D or even in the RC in 2016 were giving much of a thought to CEDH at that time. But one of the things that became very evident even in casual spaces was, Timna, Crom, and Thrasios are just the best out of these commanders, and I ain't even close. And so they tried to figure out how to fix the mechanic so that it wasn't as broken. And you had mentioned like partner with, where you could have 2 commanders, but they only had to be with the cards that, said partner with this commander. Then you had the Friends Forever, which is basically partner, but with a specific... It literally is partner, just with other Friends Forever cards. Yeah. That's literally all it is. It functions exactly the same. And choose a background, which is also similar to partner, but the difference is you choose a creature and an enchantment. And I've talked... Kes Wiley's talked about this on what is it? On like TikTok and stuff like that, about how these are just like failed attempts at fixing partner, where it doesn't add anything to the landscape. It just kind of adds, here's a bunch of more stuff, and people don't tend to pick them up, unfortunately, because they don't function with the mechanic everybody wants them to function with, which is partner. And so, like, right out of the gate, like, straight up, I love the mechanic of partner. I think it is such a cool mechanic. But I understand not everybody shares that opinion. But I love the mechanic. I think it's so cool. It's the realm of possibilities is huge.
Yeah, the flexibility it offers is really cool. And just like, especially when they added the monocolor partners.
Yes.
That was probably their best attempt to fix the mechanic. It just, I think a lot of people run into issues with it is the dual colors partners. And I don't know if I see them making more dual color partners again, unless they're like bad.
Yeah. Sorry, CDH players, you're stuck with Tana.
Sid Arcondo.
I don't know that I don't know that that's necessarily true, but like, because like, if you look at the dual color partners, there's really only 3 of them that are like actually not designed well, and that's Thrasios, Tymna, and Crom. And the only reason they're poorly designed is they're too generic, and that's literally the only issue with them. With the partners, and you could even argue that with like the monocolored partners, that the like Malcolm is too generic and too aggressively costed at 3 mana. But you really only have like 3 or 4 out of I think there's like over 100, so there's like 1,600 commander combinations with partners now. That are truly problematic, and realistically, what I think they should have done was make more like the monocolored commanders should have been the generic. If you could like go back and like redo the mechanic, the 2-color partners would have been the ones that if I was doing it, that were like the Ardenns, the I'm trying to think like the Krarks, those sort of things where they are doing a very specific thing and they're already in 2 colors. And then the generic value engines are 1 color, because then it forces those generic value engines to only be in a max of 3, right? And that's kind of the biggest issue with it right now, is you can get 4 colors and just have generic value engines as your commanders.
Yes.
And that's the problem. And so that's more of a just, we effed up on like 2 or 3 cards. And
yeah, it's because like there's a couple of the 2-color ones that I actually do think are very well designed. The main 2 that come to my mind are Silas, because
I love Silas.
Silas is artifacts, and they have to be in your graveyard, and you're in 2 colors that care about artifacts. And Silas has to connect to do his value, which is not always easy. He does have like Death Touch, right?
So yeah, he does have Death Touch, so he's a little evasive.
He's like tiny bit evasive. He's going to trade, but you don't really want to trade with your value engine if for the long game. But it gives him some angles to play.
Yeah.
The other one is Kydel. Prophet of Krufix, or not Prophet of Krufix, but something of Krufix, chosen by Krufix.
Chosen of Krufix.
That one being a mana dork in blue-green that only taps for more mana if you draw more cards. That tells me, do what blue-green value wants to do, and I will give you the reward and the enabler for it.
Well, you can see in the 2016 set design that there was clear, like, partner thought pairings, right? Mm-hmm. So you have, like, Rayhan, Last of the Abzan, and Ishai, Ojutai, Dragon Speaker, and those were both, I believe, in the Atraxa deck. And so they're kind of encouraging you, hey, play around with counters, go try and do the sort of like I forget what the modern deck is that worked with what's it called?
Hardened Scales?
Hardened Scales type deck. And so trying to do those sorts of things. And so like I can see, we talked about this on one of our podcasts where we like kind of went through and like did a retrospective on Commander 2016, and we like kind of looked at all of the commanders, and you could like see like Ravos is like a really a pretty well designed Magic card. It's a buff, it has some evasion, but it also has a relevant ability, and it's not generic, but it is generic enough that you can fit a lot of strategies around it, which is what I think Partner should be.
I mean, yeah, so like you said, they were designing the partners for the commander decks in mind. So like, what was it? Brea's precon was Silas and what was it?
It was
Akiri
Silas and Bruce was in that.
Was it not Akiri?
No, it's Silas, Akiri, and Bruce.
Okay, so like Silas Akiri, that also works for if you wanted to run that for your Brea precon, like that works just fine.
That's right. Timna was in the Sans Blue one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was
Ravos, Silas.
That was Saskia.
Saskia. Yep. Yeah, Saskia is the main commander for it, and it was pairing Timna, Tana, and you had Ravos in there.
And it's like you can see the thought behind it, and like it's not bad. The problem is when you then kind of take them out of that deck and then put them together, and then you started realizing, oh, these kind of work a little bit different. And they tried to remedy that a little bit with Partner With, but Partner With just took away so much about what was good about Partner that it just didn't hit.
Well, okay, I will say I do like Partner With overall.
I like what it was designed for. Like it was Battle Bond, right? So like you could play Peer and your teammate could play Toothy. And so like you cast your Peer, they go get your Toothy. I know that's not commander related, but it's still really cool design.
The forgotten line of text on how Partner With works. Yeah. You do the creature enters the battlefield and target player may search their deck for the partner that it pairs with, which is very interesting if you ever wanted to play Peer and Toothy in a deck. Keep that in mind. You do have a free tutor on a stick.
Yep. Partner With is a cool mechanic, and was designed well for like what it was. It was clearly designed for Two-Headed Giant, and when they tried to put it into the commander decks, I really only think the one that lands is like Brawl and Shabraz. And like the Sultai one is good almost exclusively because of the black-blue one.
It's Ukima and the guy.
Caesar. Caesar, something along those lines.
And it's one of those things where, like, it just loses so much of what makes, when you try to make it a commander-related thing, it loses so much of what made it good. And that's one of the things where it's like, I almost wish backgrounds had partner, because like if you changed backgrounds so that they functioned as partner, like you could put like the background enchantments as your partner if your commander says partner, like I don't think any of them would be that broken. No. Like the what's it called, the background commander enchantments are pretty like tame overall. And so it's like, that's just kind of my issue with it, is I would just rather see, like, I've said this for a very long time. Like, okay, so you messed up with Timna and Ardenn, or not Ardenn. Ardenn was Ardenn is perfect. There are no notes. Like Thrasios, Timna, Crom is okay. So you've made that mistake. The only way that you can undo that, in my mind, is okay. So we need to now give you. You have to flood the market with options, which they did in Commander Legends, and that actually did do exactly what I thought it would do, which is you don't see people just playing Thrasios Timna and Timna Crom all the time. You see people playing a lot of different stuff. You see Jessica Timna. You see all these different, partner pairings, and that is ultimately good. And if you give people a lot of good options like they did, I mean, hell, you saw me playing Ardenn Crom, Ardenn Silas. Like, if you give people some interesting things, they will take that and go, oh, heck yeah, cool, I'll do that. But yeah.
Yeah, to your point, I think I would have liked the enchantments, the background enchantments as well, to have partner.
Yeah.
Specifically because they don't do anything without the commander. So, like, if you remove the commander, then it's literally just a permanent.
It literally, like the one caveat to that is that it does turn on all of your if you control your commander, you could cast this for free spells in your Jessica's Wills and all those things, which is hilarious because they do count as your commander.
But I mean, people playing Rograk for that reason anyway, too. So,
well, yeah, sure. It's just funny that like you could do that with them because it like feels unintuitive. But
it is still quite unintuitive. One of the things that always makes me laugh is if you go on a spell table, right, and you're playing against a background commander, it does put the background as potentially dealing commander damage to you, because if you turn that thing into a creature, it can kill you.
That can deal. That like is a thing that you can do.
Wait, so if you have Raised by Giants, which is the one that makes commander creatures base 10/10s, and you animate it as an enchantment.
Yeah,
like,
it's a 10/10.
That's hilarious. I love that.
Yeah.
I gotta kill someone with Raised by Giants now.
That's
Absolutely.
like the permanent has this like you can't take the quality of it being a commander away from it ever. It's always your commander. No matter whether it gets like changed into a clue or into whatever, like it's always a commander. It's really wild. But it's also like the only way you can make it's the only way you can actually make the commander rules work in any sort of fashion. Otherwise, they like fall apart really quickly.
Yeah. Usually characteristics like that aren't given to a card and it stays with that characteristic forever. Yeah. It's weird. Like, I think I brought this Cameron, I think I brought this up before, but one of my favorite games that I played of Commander, it made me annoyed, but someone dropped an Ixodron on...
Yeah, you've talked about this.
Yeah, someone dropped Ixodron, turned everyone's cards face down, and I go, all right, well, I'm going to swing at you, and they're like, all right, what did you hit me with? Well, that one's the commander. I can assure you of that. This no-name 2/2 is my commander. Get him.
Get wrecked.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's funny because you could like... I don't know how you would do this, but you can like make like you could elk one of the backgrounds, right? And then like do the vintage thing where you just smack people in the face with
Black
an
Lotus.
enchantment.
Everyone Starfield of Nyx, get in there.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I will say one positive I do like about the backgrounds is they did make them all monocolored, so we don't have the too many colors issue, and they kind of fix the 9th card problem, which is you might have heard this before when talking about commander in general. The 8th card problem is your commander. You just naturally start the game with 8 cards in your hand. By having 2 commanders, you now have a 9th card, and if you use a companion, there's your 10th card. So
well, with how companion was originally worded.
Yeah. So The 8th card problem was particularly prevalent in Modern when talking about companions. But the 9th card problem here with the choose a background, they fixed it just by making it so that, well, you have like 8.5 cards as opposed to 9 cards, which doesn't feel satisfying though, especially because your commanders are so weak now. Even your primary commander is usually pretty weak. Like, one of the best ones is Gale. And
Gale and Scion of Hallister.
Yeah, Gale Scion's a really good combination, but at the same time, Scion doesn't do anything unless Gale's in play, and Gale can feel a little mediocre at times. Same with Abdel Adrian, for example.
Yeah, like it's interesting because this kind of gets into this like weird, like thing where you kind of have to ask this question of, because there's an obvious resource discrepancy in Commander between seats 1 and seats 4, and you could get into all sorts of territory about how like that is an issue and all of that. But I think the like 8th and 9th card problem is not really an issue in Commander, in my opinion, because the entire format is that. So it's not like in Modern where, you know, I'll be sitting down and I'm playing Tron, and then I sit down against an opponent and they're playing like Luris when that was legal, and my opponent automatically has an extra card in their hand.
I mean, that could even be more like if you're mulliganing and stuff. It's like,
And the one important thing too is that like there are a lot of hate pieces, namely like Draenei Magistrate, that really like stops it from being part of your hand. And so, like, I think in Commander, it's a little less of a problem. Like, Companion was clearly an attempt by Wizards to try and bring, like, the Commander aesthetic and feel to 60 card, because they're definitely trying to harness that. And then you could see a clear pivot into, fuck it, we're just going after Commander. And, like, it's one of those things where I just think, like, from a design standpoint and from a, like a command, or from a like rules standpoint, I don't know that the extra card problem is necessarily like a real enough issue, in my opinion, because it's just like
everyone has it.
Yeah, it's baked into the formula. Like it's what's the thing that like Syndrome said in The Incredibles, when everyone's super, no one will be. And that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like when everybody has 9 card opening hands, nobody does. So it's just
right. But now we're talking about, you know, driving the whole format towards having, you know, this homogeneity of just partners, right, dominating it then, which could be an issue. Similarly, it is a big deal. Like, partner is a problem when the partner is strong enough to be like a standalone commander. Timna can be a commander on its own.
Thrasios too.
Thrasios barely makes it in my mind, but yeah, Crom falls a little bit flat of like, I don't really want Crom to be a commander on its own, but Crom is still very, very good. But then you can flip it, and when we talk about the monocolored ones and where some of that fell flat, there are so many of them that just cannot exist as their own commanders.
Yeah.
Ardenn is an exception.
Ardenn's very much an exception. Ardenn's a very well designed Magic card, if I'm being honest. Yes, it's like it's just strong enough so that it makes it interesting, but it's not so busted that it's like you got to get rid of it, right? Like it's in that sweet spot of being just right. I love that card.
Yeah. Cameron, were you the one who taught me that you can attach Skullclamp to other people's creatures using Ardenn?
Was it me?
It might have been you.
I know I played Ardenn on the channel casually a long time ago. Like it was Ardenn Akiri. And Sunforger's my favorite Magic card, so I want to jam Sunforger in any deck I can.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I've been trying to think of an Ardenn, like a blue partner to get counterspells off Sunforger, and I was thinking about like Ardenn Crom. That sounds awesome.
Can confirm Ardenn Crom is awesome.
Equipment as an archetype in EDH is just so much fun. It's so honest. You see what's gonna happen.
It's the most like this is what's really wild about it, is because like I've had a lot of discussions with people, and it's just like it is the most fair competitive Magic deck you could possibly play, honestly. Absolutely. Because it is not trying to do anything super broken. It is literally just trying to sit there and just beat your face in and control the game, and that's it. And that's one of the things where like I always found it really funny, because there were people who like I would play it in tournaments who weren't familiar with Ardenn, and they would think, "Oh my gosh, this is a huge deal," and I'm like, "Hey, relax. I am here for a long time, not a good time. So we're going to be here for a while, okay? This isn't a problem. Like, it will eventually be a problem, but Ardenn's not going to be the issue there. Like, there's going to be another issue there. And so it's one of those things where I do think it's kind of cool how it like kind of asks you to play like this really just fair Magic almost.
Yeah.
And it's very much my style.
Fair Magic.
Good. I call it good Christian Magic. It's just so very like Jeskai Stoneblade with like, especially once I take the Breach package out, because Breach has just been performing so poorly in it. That it's so like, just like I am winning with Godo maybe, but I'm probably just gonna beat your face in with this Crom and draw a bunch of cards, and that's how we're winning the game. And it's just like you see all these other decks that are doing, all right, I'm gonna play ritual nods, blah, 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 do all this stuff, and it feels broken. And then you play against this, and it's just like, all right, here's this. All right, my my Skrill's Hive made a 1/1. I'm gonna equip my Skull Clamp to that and draw 2. This is the most broken thing the deck does, and it's just like, yeah, it's
good to see Bitter Blossom has a place.
Good Christian Magic, yeah. Yes, Bitter Blossom and Skrill's Hive are like essential pieces in Ardenn decks, in my opinion.
I have to continue down this tangent just a little bit longer with a slight deviation. So Cameron and I have both tried out the current version of Murderbird that is on the decklist database, which is like really heavy in on assuming that Ishai is going to be in play.
Yes.
Like, it's playing Robe of the Archmagi, and I don't understand.
I think Ethan played it and got blown out. Like, I think he Enlightened tutored for it, and it is no cards in hand now.
Yeah, it like I've seen it, and it definitely is like assuming Ishai will always hit the board, and I'm just like, hey fam, I like appreciate your like dedication to your craft, but I hate to break it to you, I don't think that is how, like, I'm not gonna get on this, but basically my TLDR is that Jeskai is a really bad combo color pairing, like, in my opinion. Look at Jeskai in every other format, and it is control hardcore, because that's what blue and white wants to be doing. And so in CEDH, we've all been like, okay, so we can only win with combo, because we've all talked ourselves into thinking that's the only way we can win. And so now I have to shove this card in and this card in, even though it doesn't do anything with my strategy whatsoever. And then you get these decks like that just kind of don't do anything, or get blown out really quickly. But I don't know. That's a whole podcast unto itself.
I was gonna say, I can only think of two like Jeskai decks off the top of my head is Murderbird and Bralin Shabraz. It's kind of where the list stops.
I mean, Elsha's really good.
Yeah,
and like Elsha does its thing. Ardenn Crom is starting to gain like the following, which I am psyched about. But
I think Jason and I have talked about it. How like one more tangent off the tangent, then we'll stop. How Wizards has not been able to design good commanders for Jeskai. It has always been just spells, and then you kind of get left with like what's the hound, the dog that you can tap to scry X, where X is your storm count.
Oh, this Chimera.
Yeah,
I think like Hinata's probably like
Hinata's really cool.
The best Jeskai. Like if you were to design like a really good flavorful Jeskai commander, I think Hinata is like the one that really hits all the notes.
Yeah, and gosh, like Cameron, both you and I have also played the Archimandrite recently.
Yes,
and like
it's so that card that I forgot was from Brothers War.
Yeah, it was in like the whatever packs that you can't like. I don't keep up with it as much. I just know it exists.
Yeah. Like that card. I don't think I've seen a card with so many words on it that does nothing.
It asks so much. It asks for so much just to work. You have to have like over 4 cards in hand, be gaining life, and your creatures are monks.
Yeah, it's a card that almost feels like you just ignore the first 2 lines of text about gaining life, and you just focus on the last line of text of tapping creatures to draw cards. And it's like, cool, grab your Jeskai Ascendancy, go ham, baby. That's all we got going.
Yeah. it was very clear to me that Dominaria or Brothers War, they like really knew what they were doing with, and it's probably why we only got 2 commander decks. It was because they like really knew what they wanted to do with Urza and Mishra, and then they were like, well, there's also Titania, and there's also this other faction. But we don't really know what to do with them that we haven't done or can make interesting. So they made stuff and then just threw it in the set.
Yeah. I will say I do appreciate that they still had a decently high number of commanders in that set, a little more than I would have liked to see. But I do appreciate that they didn't do the generic, oh yeah, we need to make sure that we have 1 commander of every color combination, or 2 color combination, and then a monocolored one, right? Like they did that. They did that for 1, and I appreciate you, but I didn't need like Ovika to exist. New Azuri's cool. We'll take New Azuri.
I kind of like it in 1 just from the perspective of I think it lets you see kind of what the colors on Phyrexia look like. Because I tangent again.
This tangent train don't stop.
I have said for really like, and it's no shock to me that this is like selling gangbusters already, right? Like New Phyrexia was a wildly popular set, and Mirrodin was a wildly popular set, and it's people like the setting, and it also just has like, especially now that it's been fully Phyrexianized, there's like a lot of stuff where you're like, okay, we've never actually really seen what Phyrexia is, so it's, for me, really cool to see, okay, here's what Phyrexia is, and here's what all of the different color pairings look like, and so it's not like so much a, like, very specific, all-encompassing thing, but like a Cliff's Notes on here's what these color pairings do here. And I think, honestly, if I'm being honest, I think a lot of those 2 color commanders are designed for limited because they are bananas in limited.
Yeah, sometimes if you can get there, right? Like back to Ovika, if he comes down, yeah, you're probably winning because Ward 3 plus
pay 3 life. Yeah, have the card
just being
right in front of me.
7 minutes.
Yeah, that's what that card. I was like, what is Ovika? But now I remember. Now it's the
blue-red legendary. Yeah, card's like fine, but for commander, it's not very exciting compared to other Spellslinger commanders.
It's like the Locust God, but like dollar store Locust God. Honestly,
it is absolutely dollar. Yeah, it is 100% dollar store Locust God.
But yeah, so that wraps up our Phyrexia All Will Be One set review.
Oh my goodness. back onto the whole partners thing. Let's just get the 4 different partner mechanics. Let's just flat out say, how do we feel about them? Cameron, opinion on partner, partner with, friends forever, and backgrounds.
So I'll start with the easy ones. Partner with is fine. Like if it limits creativity with like deck building, which kind of sucks. But for what it was designed for in Battle Bond, it was really cool. And then Friends Forever, I kind of forgot that existed. Was it the Stranger Things secret layer? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I've never seen a deck built with those. There's some that are kind of cool. Like I know there's the Artifact Mana Dork, and then I have it pulled up, but I'm not going to go through them all. They're just out of my memory.
Yeah.
And then I actually really like backgrounds. As a D&D nerd, it's really fun to see. I wish they would have allowed it some more flexibility with putting them with the partners, because I don't think off the top of my head, none of the backgrounds are busted or anything. Mm-hmm. They're just fine. So I don't think it would have impacted things too terribly much.
Yeah.
But as far as partner, it kind of teeters on the edge for me. Like especially with the 2 color ones and obviously the ones in question, but no one ever complains about, as we said, the Rayhans or the Sidar Kondo.
Nobody's mad about Ludevic, right? Like nobody gets up in arms about Ludevic.
So it may, while it is kind of busted, I think that's more of a result of the commanders that have those color identities, those 2 color commanders being really, 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 really good, and less of a partner bad kind of thing.
Yeah. Even building in the CDH sphere, right? Like, no one really complains about Ikra Shadiki or Bruce. They have a role that they fill, and they're useful, but they're not broken.
I mean, people don't even really complain about Timna Crom, right? Like, it's people tend to be more frustrated with, like, Dockside and Underworld Breach than they are with, like, it's more about that there are very clear best win cons in particular colors than it is the commanders are homogenizing. And, that was like something you had brought up earlier, Jason, is how like, they kind of homogenize stuff. And I would agree with that if we were only talking about CEDH. But if we look at like Commander as like all that it is, I think I just don't think that's an issue. Because a lot of people will either, like, part of the issue with Golos, right, was that Golos was all-encompassing for lands in 5 colors. Kenrith is less of an issue, because Kenrith can kind of be whatever you want it to be, right? So it's not every lands deck is this deck, right? Because it was the way it was going in in EDH as a whole, was every lands deck that wasn't mono green was a Golos deck, because it was just, there was no reason not to be. And you don't really see that with the partners, because the Timnas and the Croms and the Thrasioses do a lot less in that setting than they do in CEDH, which seems odd, but like they're...
I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Like Timna, there's going to be more blockers. There's more combat. Like with Crom, you're not going to get as much double spelling. People are going to tap out to play their 7 mana, I don't know, the do nothing enchantment. Double vision.
You're primal surging.
You're primal surging.
Zendikar Resurgent is my favorite
there you go.
big one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like building into this as well. The only Golos deck I've ever seen that I truly enjoyed was one that was played on Star City Games, where the whole point of the deck was to activate Golos and make a haiku.
I can tell you the Golos deck that I enjoyed the most, and that was Golos Prison. Okay. The entire, we did a series of videos early on it was a collaboration with different creators, where it was like the iconic challenge. So what you had to do was you had to take an iconic deck from Magic's history and try and translate it into CEDH the best you could. And I picked Mishra's Workshop Stacks, or Prison from Vintage. And basically the deck was just like 1,000,001 ways to get a shops down and a Golos down on turn 1. Then you would get a Tabernacle with the Golos, and then you would just replay your Golos and get
it's disgusting.
And so you would have Tabernacle down as a consistent way to replay your Golos, because you could just keep sacrificing it, and then you would just play all of these massive artifact spells that nobody could deal with, like Godpharaoh's Statue and Spine of Ishsaw and all of these different things. And you would just like, it was the only prison deck I've ever seen actually function in CEDH, and it was very great while it lasted. And I miss Golos for exactly that. But
you made 5-color colorless work.
I did. It was like, it barely played. Like, I think it played Force of Will and like a couple of the good cheap like interaction spells, but like mostly it was just wanting to slam down big expensive. Like it had like a what was it, what's the portal, the
Planar Bridge or
no,
Portal to Phyrexia?
The
Coercive Portal?
What is
Coercive Portal?
No, not Coercive Portal. It was
like Omen Machine kind of thing.
It was similar. It was like you kind of had to sack something every turn. I'm pulling up the list now, and I'm gonna see it, and I'm gonna hate my brain. Possessed Portal.
Possessed Portal. Yep.
And so you would do that, and you had like Karn, Mycosynth Lattice Locks, and like you got all of these different stuff in there. And so it was just this cornucopia of artifact hate, and it was wonderful. It was except for everybody else, but I enjoyed it a lot.
I was gonna say, I wish I had a cool Golos story to tell about it being a cool commander. I don't. I will instead speak for Ethan, whose internet died, unfortunately. He played it in Legacy, and it was really fun to see it in Legacy Cloudpost, Golos Cloudpost.
Yeah, I used to play. I played a lot of Tron in my time, and Golos is one of my favorite Tron pieces because it's so good.
That's super cool.
Bouncing with Caracas, though. That's when it was nasty.
So, Callahan, what do you feel on each of the mechanics just overall?
So partner with, I think, is for me kind of a miss. I think it was good. I think it's really good from a limited two-headed giant perspective. I think that is a really well-designed mechanic in that regard. But overall, I think it's not that interesting. It doesn't really, like, if it was, you could partner with anything that says partner with, I think that'd be much more like captivating and interesting, and I'd be way more interested in it. But because it's partner with something specific, it just, for me, is like, okay, so why don't I just play a different commander that I like more? Because most of the partner with commanders, I think, are pretty mid overall. Friends Forever is like, whatever. Okay, thank you for not putting partner on this. Because the last thing we needed was a 3-color partner that was Grixis. I really appreciate that being considered. But like overall, like the Friends Forever commanders are pretty unoffensive. Like they're all very okay. Backgrounds, I think I said this earlier, but it's like I was originally like, backgrounds, please don't be just partner. But after I saw the backgrounds, I'm the kind of like, I kind of wish these just said partner. Because it would have made it more, it would have given more incentive to play it, and it also would have given people more incentive to not play the established things. And I'm very pro shaking up those sorts of commander pairings, which is why Commander Legends will forever be like my favorite set, because it did exactly that. It completely disrupted the established order of how partner pairings worked. And partner to me is, I think it is on a conceptual level a perfect fit for Commander. On a, like, purely theoretically speaking, it is, like, take execution out of it for a moment. Just from the conceptual standpoint, it is about as Commander as you can get. The idea of mixing and matching and kind of creating your own unique blend of a deck is very what this format's all about to its fundamental level. With that being said, there are 3, maybe 4 commanders that are so good that it kind of negates that effect a little bit. Now, I don't know that they're, like, ban-worthy good, but they do kind of, they do kind of make me want them to just make more partners so we have more good options. The only option isn't just Crom and Tymna. I want there to be a reason to play other, like, 2-color commanders, honestly. And that's kind of how I feel about it, so.
No, that feels pretty good to me, too. Like, my genuine opinion on Partner itself is the mechanic is busted. I think the 9th card problem does come up a fair bit, even in the most casual of areas, and the balancing factor of it is to basically turn your commander into half of a card as opposed to a full card of value, which doesn't feel great for a lot of the partners. So the only other way you can really balance that out is by really narrowing in on, like, a very specific mechanic you want to play around. Ardenn being a very specific equipment's commander makes sense. Another one that I think is actually very interesting, and I've come around to more and more as I've seen it, is Ichkatik.
Is that the Golems one?
Yeah, the 5 mana Golems commander in mono green. Right?
It's super cool. Like, the amount of stuff that you can do with that. Like, if you put, like, what's it called? A Sword of Hearth and Home on something that can flick, or realistically anything that flickers it makes, like, an absurd amount of golems, and they flood the board really fast.
Yeah, which is super, super cool, and that's the type of partner that I really like. Yep. I'll talk about it since Ethan is not here. Krark is also, in my opinion, a good partner, despite it being a mechanic that I don't like at all.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to argue. Like, Krark and Sakashima were clearly designed to go together. Like, it was very clear R&D was like, we're going to make this a thing, because not only did they print it, they then spent 2 years printing support for it. And it's one of those things where I like the mechanic from the standpoint of, it is like, you have a stacks piece in the command zone, but it also can be a win con if you get lucky. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Whatever. If that's the game you want to play, go for it.
I'm sure you've spoken with Ken about this before, but, like, he calls that deck, like, mental stacks, which is very true.
Yep. Yes. Very true.
But going on, partner, it's really hard to balance it to the point where I would say that the mechanic itself is just kind of a mistake overall, and in the pure form of partner. But there's things you can do to make it okay. Partner with, I actually do really like, because it's the idea of you want to mix and match 2 commanders or 2 things that shouldn't necessarily be paired together. I think Braylon and Shabraz is a really great example on the execution of partner with, as you have one commander that cares about drawing cards, one that cares about discarding cards. Both of them get value out of doing it. And it feels very Jeskai when you put them together to care about wheels in this sort of way. Similarly, like, all of those partners were all pretty good. Or partner with, it's all very interesting how they're designed together to make it feel and mix and match. It just limits your creativity, which is the big weakness of that mechanic. Because it's like having it's just having, like, one commander as opposed to being a true mix and match partner.
Right.
Yeah, Friends Forever's whatever.
It's fine. Baby Blue Farm exists.
The only thing I dislike about Friends Forever is the name.
Yes, agreed. I wish they could have come up with a better name for that so bad.
Yeah, like, just make it more generic.
I guess it makes sense in the context of Stranger Things, but, like, putting it on the actual, like, you would have thought that would have changed it, going from the Stranger Things to, where are they at? On, like, They're on Innistrad, I think.
Yeah, most of them are. They're from Innistrad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I like Will and I like Wernog, but like, Friends Forever on Wernog sounds weird.
It's fine,
especially because it's like what they're friends with is like things that they would hate as well. So it's very weird. And then backgrounds, I think, are the most balanced, but they're also the least interesting. And unfortunately, the most balanced in the sense of one of your cards is like a fourth of a card until you have your other one. To which it turns it to being 1.4 cards, or like 1.5 cards, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure.
I just wish like more of the background commanders were like interesting, or did something like I feel like they really they were clearly being conservative because they knew they overshot on partner, and so they were like, okay, let's draw it back, and I think they drew it back too far. Because, like, the way that it's executed, it's just like, tell me the best partner with commander, and or not partner with, the best background commander, and, like, the best I could probably think of off the top of my head is, like, Abdel, maybe Ver.
Karlach is good in a more casual setting.
Like, it's, like, they're so blah that it's just, like... Wilson, Refined Grizzly, is my favorite card on the face of this planet. That card is a gem. It's perfect. No notes.
Wilson is perfect in every way.
It is so good. There are endless possibilities with that card in the backgrounds and how much fun you can have building a Wilson deck. Perfect. Spot on, no notes. You got it the first time. That is the slam dunk Wizards. Congratulations.
There's some interesting places to it, and quickly talking on like the balance perspective of it. Callahan, how familiar are you with Duel Commander?
I'm a little familiar with it. I know Cobblepot played it way back in the day. I know that Eminence is like the most bananas mechanic in French.
They basically banned all of them out.
Yeah, because like I remember a few years ago when they banned Arebo, and I was like, why the hell did they ban that card? And then I like saw how it functioned in 1v1, and I was like, oh, this is just the most broken card in the world. What the hell? I would also ban this in 1v1.
For people unfamiliar with Duel Commander, also sometimes referred to as French Commander, it is a 1v1 format for Commander, still have 100 card, it has a separate ban list from the normal Commander ban list, and it is a 20 life total format. And I remember times when like they initially knocked it down to 25 life, and they've knocked it down further for balancing reasons. They did something very interesting with the partner mechanic. Shout out to Gilles on our Discord. He plays Duel Commander. He is French, so
yeah, that's why people call it French, because the only people you can find that play it live in France or are French. It is insane. It only exists there.
Yeah, but it's like the go-to tournament format for Europe, though. For like, well, not overall, but it is a really popular tournament format in Europe, which is good. But the cool thing that they did with partner is, all right, you can have 2 partners. That's fine. The restriction, though, is when you go to cast one of them, you are locked into casting only that partner for the entire game. So the second partner is either a situational card that you're like, okay, I want to pivot into this axis for playing, or you just pick it for the colors.
Yeah.
It kind of background doesn't work.
Yeah, actually,
the background just doesn't work.
Yeah,
yeah.
Kind of a bad thing.
I don't know that I like that. I think I would almost rather them go the way of like Conquest and just ban the problematic ones. Honestly, because I think once you start making modifiers on how the game functions, you accidentally just break the game in a weird way, because like I think that kind of takes away from the point of like having partners. And like I understand the reasoning behind it, but I think I would just much rather them just ban like the problematic ones.
Well, the thing is, that's what they did at first. And their ban list was, they banned like 20 partners at some point. And it was like, we can't keep banning this many partners, because anytime they ever make another new partner, we're just going to have to rework the entire ban list.
I mean,
every single time.
I guess I would just ban partners then at that point, right? Like, just ban if a card says partner, banned. Like, that's what I would do. Because then, like, background still works, because, like, background, I feel, is pretty unoffensive. And then, like, partner with is still fine. Like, all of those cards, I'm pretty sure, in French are, like, fine.
I can't think of anyone that would be broken.
Yeah.
Probably the worst offender would be, like, Pure and Toothy.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that is, Pure and Toothy is a nuts commander deck and is super slept on. But
very good.
I don't know how I like that. Like, I understand the reasoning for it. And I think that's, like, I can't argue with the reasoning, but also I'm a, like, rules junkie. And so, like, from a judging perspective, I feel like that makes it harder on judges and harder on players to keep track of things. And I think that's probably my biggest complaint with that.
Since this is a 1v1 format and it's a 20 life format as well, I do feel like extra cards are felt much harder than it is in Commander, multiplayer Commander, where, you know, kill the Simic player, they're always going to draw more cards than you. You know, they're going to go over top of you if you don't put them on the clock, right? This format lets you clock people, but you also don't want to make it so that an aggro deck has an extra card, right? Because, like, one of the best decks in the format currently is Yoshimaru Tana.
Yeah, makes sense.
Naya aggro, legendary creature aggro.
Yeah.
You don't need them to have the backup plan of Tana.
Yeah. So I think this actually is an interesting, like, more from the perspective of why I like like just regular old Commander, because I feel like I'm very, like, uninterested in playing Duel Commander, and it's not so much because of their ban list, or, like, even, like, Canadian Highlander, I'm just, like, not interested in playing. I like CEDH because of the multiplayer aspect of it. Like, I don't, like, this is one of the things, like, when I was talking about how, like, the extra card issue is just kind of negated by the fact that you're playing against 3 opponents who also have extra cards, is that, like, as the table is able to recognize when one player is starting to pull away. And, like, in our game, Jason, there was, like, when we played at Oko, like, it was very clear 3 of us were trying to deal with the Urza player for a while. And that was, like, if you don't have that dynamic, the Urza probably just wins that in a 1v1, right? And I think that makes for very uninteresting gameplay, because then there are very clear, really good cards, and then everything else just kind of becomes very, like, it feels a lot more rock, paper, scissors-y at that point. Whereas in 4-player, it's more interesting of how the table dynamic plays into that, and how you have to be able to communicate with players. And insert my CEDH is just, like, competitive, is MTG Survivor, yada yada yada. But it's, like, that's kind of why I think it's interesting, and I think that's probably why I like you know, EDH over, like, Duel, because you don't have these issues of, you know, whoever is on the play has the advantage, right? That kind of gets negated in multiplayer.
The multiplayer aspect of Commander as it is just makes the format much more interesting overall. It also leads to a lot of difference of perspective, and skill ceiling matters a lot. Like, you mentioned, like, all 3 of us recognized there was a problem, so we needed to address what Urza was doing. But you could also see there was like one other thing, right? During that game, when I played Seedborn Muse, it was immediately removed. There was an immediate pivot to recognize, like,
everybody is
okay,
like, oh, you're on a Thrasios deck and you have Seedborn Muse. Nope, that has to be dealt with right now.
there's a clear... So it's like, when the table is all at a pretty high skill level, I feel like it adds a lot. But at the lower skill level, sometimes it can be a little bit weird. But then again, lower skill level plus casual just means Mario Kart, let's go, baby!
Well, so I had that experience when I played at Silicon Dynasty, and this is actually kind of characteristic of, like, West Coast EDH scene, where it's a lot of people on the West Coast are much, much newer to CEDH. And a lot of the people who went to Silicon Dynasty who weren't, you know, people that we know, that was their first time at a competitive event, period. And their first time really even playing CEDH. And so in a format like that, it actually kind of benefits you to play those, like, really turbo strategies, because you can just, like you would, like, this sounds mean, but you can win off of people just being stupid. Whereas a deck like Ardenn Silas and an Ardenn Crom, you kind of need people to not play like morons. And if your opponents do really weird stuff, like, I had one opponent at Silicon Dynasty who was activating their Urza on other people's turns. So, like, treating it like a Thrasios. No. And he exiled Winter Orb and Trinisphere, doing it that way. And we ended up losing to a turbo deck. And I'm sitting there going, man, if only there were 2 cards in your deck that we hadn't just exiled for no reason. That could have been helpful here. But it was just like, it's very true, though, that, like, the skill ceiling in multiplayer really comes to the forefront. And really gets accentuated because, like, when somebody at the table doesn't know what's up, like, that we talked about this a lot with after Marchesa when Magda won, is how Magda's one of those decks where it takes one person at the table not knowing how that deck works and you lose. Like, you just straight up lose to that deck if one person at the table doesn't know how that deck functions. Everybody has to play responsibly and know what it does. And it's interesting how multiplayer adds that. And that's why I like multiplayer, though, is because it kind of gives you that element of, if people don't know what I'm doing, I can kind of get away with some stuff. And it's very interesting. I am very good at train of thought. What's the the word, like a what of consciousness, stream of consciousness, like talking,
consciousness flow.
Yeah, like that's I'm very good at, just in my mind, just to, this connects to this and this connects to this, and all of a sudden we're like 9 miles away from the topic.
No, it's good. Tangents are fun. Don't let anyone say otherwise. Yeah, with that, I think we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to talk about with partners today. Thank you all very much for watching another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast, and thank you very much to Callahan for being a guest today. Really appreciate
thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a really good time, and I appreciate being able to come on here and just chat for a little over an hour about this game that I like.
Yeah, it's awesome. If you want to see some edited EDH gameplay, you can check out our main channel, SmoothBrainEDH. We upload every Saturday for that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to check out more podcasting, particularly talking about CEDH as a format, please check out the Mind Sculptors. They're an awesome podcast. Super group to work with, so you get a lot of really good, diverse perspectives.
We try.
Yeah. While you're there, go to their video, comment on it. Comment on this one, too, because we appreciate that as well. And if you'd like to talk to us directly, feel free to join our Discord. If you have any interest in supporting us financially, we've got Redbubble for merch, and we have our Patreon. All links are directly in the description or in our link tree. So, this has been Jason with Cameron and Callahan. Thank you all very much for watching. Y'all have a great day.